Welcome to the NEPA Scene Podcast. We're coming to you live from the Accelerator Building in downtown Wilkes-Barre. I'm Rich Howells. I'm the founder and editor of NEPA Scene. And tonight we're here with Bob Barnett, a solo artist and the singer, songwriter, and guitarist of Scranton punk band Captain We're Sinking, who are set to reunite at Good Things Are Happening Fest at the Scranton Iron Furnaces on Saturday, August 6th. I should get a medal for being able to go through all of that. Good things are happening fest at Scranton. In his first interview, I guess, since you guys broke up in 2018, so this has been a while. Bob is sitting down with us to talk about their 12-year career, growing up at an important time in the local music scene, being signed to Run for Cover Records and recording albums like The Future Is Canceled, why they split up, and what made this anticipated reunion finally happen. His new solo record, Darkness, Only Darkness, and much, much more. So please stay tuned for the full hour. We would love to hear from you guys down in the comments. I saw actually some of the comments have already started. Yes, we are on punk time. So this show always runs on punk time, even when we do not have punk bands on the show. There's always, one little thing that needs to be fixed or changed or whatever behind the scenes, but we're rolling. We're doing good. We would love to hear from you guys in the comments. So while we're kind of getting nostalgic or whatever, if you want to bring up some anecdotes from those days or anything like that, any questions or comments that you have, anything about what he's up to lately, because he's still making music, just because the band is not necessarily together, but still doing reunion shows. He's still got plenty of other solo stuff, so we're going to talk about that as well. So any of that down below in the comments, no matter where you're watching from, whichever platform, we will bring them up and try to respond to you. So before we get into it, we're just going to plug our sponsors quick. A special guest is a talent booking marketplace, making it easier for talented people to get discovered and booked. It was founded in 2017 by actor-comedian Damon Wayans Jr., alongside local entrepreneur Chris Jones. You can check them out at specialguestapp.com or download the app on iTunes or Google Play. They just launched a free program to help talent and talent professionals create and sell merch online and in person. So we have John Fry with us real fast to tell us a little bit about that program.
Thank you, Rich. So basically, I'm just here to kind of update everybody how we're doing with Merch Booth. Just to give everyone who may not have seen, merchbooth.com is going to be a website our goal was basically to empower musicians that aren't rich and famous to make some money. With special guests, we do that. And now we're trying to bring it to the merch game too. So we started merchbooth.com, where any artist could sign up and get an on-demand e-store for merchandise. I'm sure it's very hard to make money off music these days because people just...
What? No way.
I know. People these days are just downloading it or something on this computer internet. And
I mean, this guy showed up in his limo. And,
right?
It was like,
I don't know about other people, but I'm doing quite all right.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so basically we wanted to create a way where artists can start an e-store. And one of the struggles for bands is kind of coming up with the money to buy a box of t-shirts. So what we do is offer an on-demand service where they can promote. They could say, hey, hop onto our merch booth and get our shirt. It's on-demand picking, packing, and shipping. So you could literally sell at all times. You could put as many designs up there as you want, so on and so forth. You can actually start making some money doing merch, start making some money making music, start being a good, successful band, get on tour, all that kind of stuff. But since we've started our launch, I think it was 2 weeks ago when we did the launch on here, we gave away 10 free designs. Since then, we have almost 100 artists that are verified and going to be put into the store.
Nice.
And the numbers are just more and more every day. So the leads are flowing in very well. We're getting some really good customers, but I mean, you sign up for this site, you'll be on the same webpage as Damon Wayans Jr., some really big names. So getting your merch out there and promoting yourself to, make some money selling merch is kind of a big deal these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just adds to the tool belt.
I had a whole bunch of people ask me about it last night too at the open mic. So the word is definitely getting out. It's merchbooth.com.
Yeah, so it's merchbooth.com. If you want to become a reseller, you would be able to just go right on there. Right at the top goes make money selling merch, and then you fill out a quick questionnaire. send some designs to us and we'll get you up on the site. So it's doing pretty good though. And I wanted to stop in and say we're doing good.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Glad to be a little part of that.
Yeah. And for the free parlor too.
Well, yeah, that doesn't hurt. Sure.
So, but thank you for letting me stop by this merchbooth.com and special guest app. Thanks guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool.
Joe.
I'm going to leave now.
All right.
Okay, bye.
You're gonna have that big couch all to yourself, except for Jabba over there. Jabba does get a little feely, by the way, so I wouldn't get too close.
Would you like me closer to you or further away?
However you feel comfortable.
I don't want to move on camera.
That's fine. That's good. So speaking of Parlor, have you ever had this before?
No, I have not.
Okay, so we have root beer, birch beer, and butterscotch.
Ooh.
So any of those that you would like
I'm
to
going to
try?
go with a classic root beer.
Nice. All right. Well, this is made right here in the Wilkes-Barre area. They consider it the best fucking root beer out there is the way that they promote it. So let's see if you agree.
That's a parlor.
Yeah. Does it make you feel like you're in a parlor?
That's a parlor.
That's a parlor.
That's really good though.
Perfect.
What is that, a parlor?
I don't need to say anything else.
Just made a new slogan. It's a parlor. You're not getting paid for that.
It is very good.
So buy parlor.
Yes. And if you'd like it sent to you, you can visit drinkparlor.com. Use promo code NEPA Scene for 10% off. I mean, I might get booted for this guy. He's way better at promoting it than I am. But
right when you said they'll send it to you for free, my head snapped like that. Like just because I did that.
Well, we can give some to you as you're leaving if you want. Yeah.
Please.
That'll keep you here though
Yes.
for a little bit with us.
It's a very good root beer.
Yeah. Thank you to Parlor for sponsoring us and a special guest, of course. So let's comments are filling up. So let's get started. I'm sure a lot of people assume because you and your brother Greg, are both in bands that you come from a musical family. Is that true? Or
It couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. And that's not saying anything about my wonderful family, but
yeah.
My mom, who I don't know is watching, she called me earlier today to ask how to watch, but I was putting my daughters to sleep, so I never answered her, and she's certainly not tech savvy. So Mom, if you are watching, I'm proud of you for figuring it out. And also hi. No musical talent whatsoever. Nothing with my dad, no like family, no hootenannies, like anything like that. It was honestly my brother getting into music and then sort of forcefully bringing me into it as well because he needed someone to play music with. So whatever sort of thing that he needed to fill out, whether that be I'm learning this guitar riff, but it doesn't sound full without a bass, so you need to get a bass. And I was like, well, I don't know what that is. And then he would convince my parents to buy me a bass and then teach me something on the bass so I could play basically so he can like do like a Blink-182 riff over it,
Okay.
So our kind of musical background was pretty much Greg getting into it, and we're getting into the same like music and band stuff at the same time, but I really had no interest in it. But then him kind of just sort of bringing me along for it as well, and that's kind of how it's always been.
Okay. So when did you start to maybe take it more seriously, or maybe start putting a band together?
I think when I started playing, because I always played in my brother's bands when he was growing up, whenever he needed someone to fill in. But I never really wrote my own stuff. And then I kind of started to get more into it, and I was practicing a lot and getting really, really into it. And I'd go up into my room, as like a 8th grader, 9th grader, whatever. And we had like one of those, those tiny little acoustic guitars you can get at like Walmart or something like that.
Right.
Like this big. Sit there and try to like I learned bass chords first from obviously Blink-182 songs, playing bass chords, and then learning like Ramon songs, and then starting to kind of just quietly in my room start doing my own things. But again, my brother's downstairs with like the amps and our little PA system. My mom is off at work, so he's being really loud downstairs. I'd be up in my room just kind of quietly strumming along. So if you do listen to the Menzingers, they have always kind of been a very loud, in your face, catchy sing along stuff. And then if you listen to some Captain stuff, like we're obviously very loud as well, but it kind of more, I don't know, maybe a little more sentimental is not the right word, but like a little more quiet at times, or a little more like reserved.
Yeah.
And I always kind of thought of that as well, of like, that's kind of how I was writing music, just kind of alone by myself. Like, I think this works. I think this is an idea, but not really too sure about it.
Yeah.
So then it sort of just started to snowball from there.
Okay. And you were at one point part of a ska band as well.
Yes, I was a thriving Scranton ska scene.
Well, yeah, of course.
So it goes back again to Greg kind of just being like, well, the bass player of, because I had my own ska band to start,
as we all did in those days.
right. 8th grade and starting your ska band, and we weren't very good. And by we weren't very good, I mean just absolute complete garbage. The drummer, one of my dear friend Chris, his dad came outside and stopped our practice, and he's like, I thought I just heard an accident on the highway, but it's you guys practicing. Real bad, like nothing like a grown construction worker going to a bunch of seventh graders and just absolutely cutting them down to the core. So my ska band obviously didn't really do too much, and the bass player of my brother's ska band quit. So he said, all right, you got to fill in now. And that's where, Leo from Captain played guitar. Mike May, Tom May's brother, he played drums. And that kind of got me into that world, hanging out with them more.
Okay.
So that was our ska band, Cosmos. Which, I mean, if you want a full Scranton royalty ska band, that's Adam from Wicked Phase and forward Tiger's Jaw, Pay for Pain. He was original guitar player, singer, and Greg played, and then members of Catherine Sinking and Menzinger's Tiger's Jaw, all in one ska band called Cosmos.
If you told everybody those names today, I don't think that they would have figured that would have become a ska band. They would have maybe expected something a little different from that.
Yeah, it's. I think Ben Walsh from Tiger Jaw is like the historian of the Scranton music scene. Has like all the old songs like on an archived iPod somewhere. So if you're like, hey, like we go on tour with them and like, oh, play that old Cosmos song, like got it right here. Well, he's got to spin the wheel to get it. It's like got it right here, and there they are singing about ignorant drivers. One of their songs.
That's amazing. Well, it's great that like somebody actually thought to do that, because I talked to so many bands and stuff that are like, oh yeah, I wish I still had that demo, or I wish I could tell you what this was like or whatever. So it's all up to him, really. If that stuff ever gets out there.
He's always had like I guess the mind of just being like, well, make sure everything is like good and safe. Like, so our first album, The Animals Are Out, we recorded it at home. It sounds like we recorded it, in like living in a sponge or a sock or something. It sounds so terribly awful. We recorded it ourselves, and the recorder that we had is like this 16-track thing, which is just gone, like just officially off the map, never backed up files. I think it was our album release show, and we were like mixing it, which literally meant like putting on like a free computer software and like putting all the levels up to 10 and being like, it sounds great. But it's like, I think 15 years since that album came out. And so people are like, hey, we want to do like a 15-year pressing of it. Like, well, sure, but not really. I mean, it sounds awful. Like, well, you just have the tracks, right? We'll remix and remaster. It's like, nope, they're gone. They're just like never coming back again. So we didn't really have the forward mind of being like, well, let's make sure we have everything nice and archived and saved, and for when we're years down the road wanting to make sure it sounds a little better than it does.
Well, I mean, who really thinks that far ahead, especially at that age? Too,
Ben Walsh does.
Ben Walsh does. So how did Captain We're Sinking finally come together?
Like in the beginning days? Yeah. So it's sort of like murky, weird history. So I had like this here's the way I have it in my head, and I'm sure if I ask like Leo or even Ben, there's probably 3 different stories, because I personally don't remember too much. But in my telling of the tale, I had an old song called Captain Was Sinking. It was like this old little sad acoustic song I wrote on one of those tiny little guitars. And I think I showed it to Leo once and he liked it, but I think he liked the song title more than he actually liked the song. And then he came to me and said, "Hey, can I take that? I'm starting a band." And I was like, "Sure." I'm kind of sad I'm not in it. And so the first Captain Was Sinking was Zach and Leo, and then Adam and Ben from Tiger's Jaw. So before Tiger's Jaw was a band, the four of them were Captain Was Sinking. And Ben also has those songs, the original, those four Captain Was Sinking songs, which we're all part of a Poker Pals. I shouldn't say pals, a poker group chat called Poker Pals. everyone's poker group chat is called Poker Pals. We have our own Poker Pals. But usually every time we have like sit down and play a game of poker, we'll like talk about those songs and whatnot. And Adam couldn't play a show one time, so I filled in on bass at the Dome. Wilkes-Barre, I think it was, or around these.
The Dome comes up again. It's come up a few times on this show over the years.
The Dome is where it all happens.
It's where it all starts.
I filled in on bass at a show at the Dome.
Okay.
And then from there, it just kind of snowballed into a thing where like I was playing more. But Adam and Ben were starting Tiger's Jaw at the same time, so they started to focus on that. And so Ben was playing drums, so me and Leo went back to Mike, who obviously I was playing with a lot because he's, one of my best friends. And old drummer of Cosmos. So like, we'll bring him in. We started calling it Cosmos Dose for a little bit. KMD. That's terrible name. Cosmos Dose didn't stick around. So we went with we like, all right, we'll keep using the name Captain Was Sinking. Got Zach on board. He didn't want to play bass because he was the original guitar player of the original Captain Was Sinking. Okay. So we made a deal, him and I, that he would play bass, I would play guitar. His only thing was he wanted us to cover Minority from Green Day.
All right.
And something else I can't forget. We never did. Like, I think we definitely shook on it. And we're like, all right, that's like, I'll
immediately thinking now.
I'll take that deal. I was like, that will never happen. We never did. So I do apologize for that. And that was the beginning of the band. It was the four of us, me, Mike, Leo, and Zach. And that's when we started writing the Animals Are Out songs. And that was like 2007, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was it.
So, at that point, did you feel like this was something that you wanted to put a lot of time and effort into? Or was this kind of a fun thing? Or
no, we went into it thinking like this is going to be our thing, and we would spend every single day hanging out at Zach's parents' house, either his mom's house or his dad's house, and just going back and forth and writing those songs. Like, I think looking back at those songs now, we will never be able to write those again just because of how intertwined we all were at this, like there are like Leo parts here, me parts here, and there's not really a chorus, but there is a chorus, and there's this, and it was just like so many ideas jumping off of each other, which was a really, really fun time. And at the same time, Tiger's Jaw and Menzinger's Title Fight are all starting to take off too. So it seemed like every weekend or so, there's a show either happening at Metro or you're going to Test Pattern or you're playing, your friend's garage, and everyone's kind of starting up at the same time. So it was a really fun environment to be in that everyone's kind of feeding off each other. And we definitely had in our minds, I'll be like, all right, this is going to be, we'll graduate high school because we didn't even graduate yet. And then after that, we're going to take off with it.
So growing up in that music scene that's so thriving and creative and interesting, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing, but you're all kind of on the same side and stuff, how did that affect you? How do you think, looking back on it, did it affect you as a person? Did it change who you are? Did it make you who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, all my friends are still the friends I had from that era, really. I was just at Tom from the Menzingers bachelor party on Saturday, and everyone at the bachelor party, obviously has a wide net now, but you see a bunch of people there that you've known since you were a kid. And so we all stayed, incredibly close, and just a very fortunate time to be growing up and playing music where you have all these people doing it as well. And everyone's kind of pushing each other to write music and to play shows and hang out and have fun. And I mean, we would play shows on tour, and kids would come up and being like, how do we create something like Scranton. I'm like, that's just the funniest sentence I've ever heard in my life. Like, you sure? But it really had an impact on a lot of people, and a lot of people from other states and other areas that wanted to build communities like that. Because you start to go through, the list of bands that have come out from this area, not even in that era, but there just seems to be these different pockets of, NEPA music that has just been kind of really cool to watch and see. And so to be alive and growing up in that era, it definitely shaped, I would say, all of us that grew up in that era of who we are today. We all stay really, really close with each other, which is cool.
And I think a lot of people still see that as, from the outside looking in. I think they see that as that's the Scranton music scene. Like, that's, those names are still around. They're still relevant today.
Yeah. And Scranton, going to Scranton and going into this area, you see that it's just such a, blue collar working class, like where everyone's helping each other out kind of area. And we always had that mentality growing up where like bands were helping out other bands, and we all stayed, the way we do things are always going to be the way that we do things. So I think this area definitely helped build in that mindset with us.
And that's the key too, is that everybody stuck together. It wasn't a competition. It wasn't, whatever, but you guys also had some great venues to work with in that time too. And that I think has changed, quite a bit too.
Yeah.
Not to say that there's not venues there's these days, there's, Carl Hall and, recently the Keystone Stage and Oliphant and some other places that are, doing all ages shows. Keystone Ramp Works is doing some shows now. So there is stuff, coming back, but maybe not quite the way we think of, the legendary status of something like the Metro or something.
Yeah. I remember those Scalaweens at Metro, and it's just like local bands with like Bob and the Saggets headlining, and it's just a line around the block,
right?
And you're like, this is crazy. That's so many kids, and we're all young kids are coming out to see something like this. Or I was just talking to Tom over the weekend about they did like 3 hours at Tinks, and we just completely packed. I think he said 3 ambulances showed up that night. I don't remember that part, but I remember looking around. I was like, wow, they're really playing for 3 hours, and there's this many people here. The first show I ever went to was at Sessions, and being like, I can't believe there's all these kids that are sort of into this stuff. I just didn't think that existed. Because Greg and I grew up in Lake Ariel, so if we want to go to a show in Scranton or Wilkes-Barre, we gotta somehow convince my mom that it's worth it for her to drive on a Friday, Saturday night, to drop us off at Metro, then do something, I guess, or go home and then pick us up. It was a big ask, but it was just cool to see so many people out there doing that. And I haven't been to a show around here in a really long time, and so I can't really speak on if it's that same sort of energy or not, or if there's that kind of youth movement to build something like that anymore. But I sure hope that there is, or I hope that if people are into building a scene, to just keep at it, because this is a pretty special place that we live in, and there's been just so many bands that have come from here.
And it's so wholesome that your parents were very accepting of that too.
Yeah. I don't know how we swung that.
So going back to the band itself, the band had a 12-year run, which is a long time to really do anything. So when you kind of look back on some of those years, what are some of your favorite stories to tell, or, times that you like to, maybe bring up and
I think we just had our first practice since we broke up a couple weeks ago, and it always goes to pretty much the tours that we would do just by ourselves. And that's just one of us booking it, and we jump in Bill's minivan, and you just kind of hope for the best. And those are the ones that always stick with you. We've never really been a road warrior band. We've never been one of those bands that kind of had it down to a T. There's always something that we did wrong. We just famously would shoot ourselves in the foot, whether that be, buying a van and 1 week later it blows up, and then all right, I guess we're going to go tour in a 4-door car, or leaving merch behind at our shows and being well, we're not going back for it. And so I guess they can have it. And, I left my guitar amp at Metro for a year once. And it was behind the bar there. And I were walking in and I was like, oh, that's where I left it. And I was like, can I have these? Like, oh, like, here, you can have it back. And like, I got my guitar amp back. So we would just do things that are just like, you can tell like other bands would look at us, you're like, wow, you're just doing this so wrong. But it does like produce the funniest, greatest memories because it was just, it was the four of us and we were just such unique personalities, the four of us. So you get us all together and you're just like, this can't possibly work. And in the end, I guess you could say from a standpoint, it didn't work. We didn't become successful with it, but we did have a lot of fun. I made my brother have almost a heart attack. I think it was over Christmas. We were talking about the band, and one of our tours, we didn't have a safe to put it in the money, and we didn't have square, and everything was all cash. So we just had like a Rite Aid bag or garbage bag. We called it the cash bag. And so all the money we made from tour, we just put in this loose like garbage bag, cash bag. We pull up to a gas station and everything.
It looked like you just robbed a bank.
It literally looked like we just robbed a bank, or you're selling merch and hold on, you're pulling up this trash bag and digging through the trash bag. And trash bag kind of became its own person on this tour because we'd like pull up to a place and like, oh, we need money for this, like cash, and everyone started chanting cash bag and kind of digging through this garbage bag of cash. So like, yeah, definitely not the way to do things, but now you look back at them and we're all alive and everyone's okay. You're like, well, that did produce a lot of fun memories. Yeah, I think that just the times of us kind of being it was just us four getting into some very weird situations and being like, well, I guess it's just the four of us getting us out of these situations was very fun.
So would you say that, the impression that I got the last time we talked a few years back was that it was kind of not necessarily the most stable group, that, it was kind of like, you said a couple of times you were just like, I quit. And then you kind of come right back to it eventually. What kind of made that, what made you keep sticking with it or keep coming back?
Yeah, we were very unstable for sure. And we would go on tour. And I think every single tour we've ever been on, I quit. We maybe have 3 shows left. And I'm just like, I'm just not doing this anymore. I'd have like this inner like panic attack and being like, I need to get my life together. I can't be just, playing Houma, Louisiana to like, these 3 dudes and their dog. I gotta like figure some stuff out. And that was just like my 20s, like being this frantic decade of your life of you see your friends either becoming successful or doing something around a path. And for me personally, I was just kind of floating there and I didn't know if I was ready to put both feet in or not. And I was just like, I like this, but it wasn't something that was pulling me in saying I have to continue to be like, this is going to be my thing. And so that's Bill, our drummer, was always the stable one. He would always be the one of like the ear, like if you have to talk to someone, he'd be like, yeah, man, I hear you. I got what you. And so I'd come to him all frantic all the time. He'd, yeah, do this. He's like, yeah, man, whatever you want to do. That's cool. Like he was always and he always still is just like the steady rock. I was definitely more panicky and freaking out all the time. So there's definitely multiple times where I think I probably got the band along in a certain way of being like, all right, guys, we're going to go do this. And everyone's like, yeah. And then 5 days later, like, nah, I quit. And they'd be like, well, thanks for that. So they probably collectively had enough of me and just being like, all right, well, forget him. We got to go figure out our own things. So we always just we would do things and then take these really long breaks. Like I just realized we were putting a playlist together of the songs we're going to play for the show. And the gap between The Future Is Canceled and the King of No Man records is like it's like 4 years.
Right.
So that's really, so we've been broken up, for a year or 2 after that. So like in those 4 years, we kind of just floated around, not really doing too much. So we've been a band for 12 years, but it really only feels like maybe a handful of when we were actually doing things.
Right.
So the instability of it all does make it fun, but now that I'm older, it kind of leaves like a little taste of like, not that you want to take a time machine and go back to those days because they're very crazy, but just like, I wish if I could go back to those days, just do things a little bit differently, just to enjoy it more and be less panicky about it all.
Okay. Well, we talked about the first album. The Future is Canceled is I think what a lot of people would consider like the big one for you guys, and I think it was. People still talk about it. I think it's very influential and whatever. Can you talk a little bit about putting that album together and like the impact that had on you guys at the time?
Yeah, that album kind of is everything that our band was at that moment, which was, are we gonna do it? Are we not gonna do it? Do we have the means and capabilities of doing it? All right, fine, we're not gonna do it. No, we will do it. So it took a while to write, and it was just the writing process was this really patchy time. I moved to Brooklyn, and Zach and Leo moved to Philly. Bill was still living in the Poconos. So we get together maybe a handful of times and kind of work on a song or two, but then, kind of just peter off and be like, oh, I don't know, what are we really doing with it?
Yeah.
It was Ben from Tiger's Jaw that was actually like, sort of collectively smashed our heads together and be like, all right, here's what you're going to do. We'll bring you out on tour. You're actually going to buy merch and you're going to sell that merch, not lose it. And you're going to come back with money because we'll have guarantees for you. Come back with money. I'm going to get you the name of this guy that we recorded our EPs with, named Vince. He'll record it for you. You do it for these amount of days and then it's done and then it's over. And that's what we did. So Tiger's Jaw kind of just dragged us into this, did that tour, got enough money to do it. And that kind of just started to build up our momentum again. So we're able to write all these songs in a really quick period of time from different ideas that we had. Recorded it with Vince for, I think, 4 days. So we did drums and bass live. We did the guitars live as well, but then just reamped them. So everything is pretty much recorded live on that album. Just reamping the guitars and then doing vocals. Took us 4 days to do. Didn't have a label to put it out. Didn't have anything really to do with how we're going to release it. We are in talks with Kind of Like Records, who put out one of our EPs. They're going to do the vinyl side of it. Lock and Key out in Pittsburgh, we're going to do the CD of it. But we always kind of had this idea of like, well, let's kind of throw it out there and see if anyone bites because we really like it. We sent it to Tiny Engines, I know, and they sent us like a bunch of their records of their bands that are on their label saying like, hey, we think it fit really well with this. Here's everything we have. So we were really, really close to going to putting it out on Tiny Engines. And then I sent it to Run for Cover and they're kind of back and forth with it. I don't know this for sure, but I do think that Tiger's Jaw also probably played a good part of us putting it out on Run for Cover because I think they were on a tour talking to Jeff or something and being like, oh, maybe, I don't know, talking us up or not, but maybe swayed a little bit. Okay. And they came back and they said they wanted to do it. And it was awesome. They were really into it. It was really cool. They've always been very just nice and supportive. They were never like pushy with us. And that was the thing. Like we were only ever going to do things our way. There wasn't probably ever going to be someone to come in and be like, this is the way you do it. Cause we probably just went like, we won't be in a band anymore. So they're like, do things how you want to do them. And that was that. And it was cool. Cause it was the first time they actually like, we were able to like promote ourselves or do press and stuff. I'm doing podcasts and phone interviews and publications and magazines and stuff like that they were able to put us out there. So it was it was a really fun, exciting time.
I actually did one with you for the Weekender that many years ago. So it definitely, I remember there being a lot of hype surrounding that at the time and, lots of buzz about it in the local scene. So that definitely was, an interesting time, but how did that, after that kind of, ran down a little bit, you guys didn't do another album then until 2017.
Yeah. So we were on, we did a tour with the Menzingers, Fake Problems, and Restoration, that we were the opening band. And that was the tour where like a couple days before about to leave, the van blew up. So I got a Honda Accord, a 2006 Honda Accord. Talked to my brother. He's like, all right, we'll bring all the big stuff into our trailer. You just got to fit this. So it's the four of us in this 4-door car. Literally, we have we got things going up the middle of the car. And we're all crammed into our own little cubbies there. And we did it was like a 2.5 week, 3 week tour in our 4-door Honda Accord. And that was like our one really big tour for the album. And there were shows and we were doing interviews at the shows and things were really starting to pick up steam. And I remember on that tour, we started to get more tour offers in that were like, all right, when you get off this one, you can go do this one. And that was one of the tours where I think we got down to Florida and we were working our way back out to Florida. And I had like a severe, just like meltdown. And I was like, I don't want to do this. It was one of those fork in the road moments where like, listen, if you want to go do it, here you go. You got a couple more tour offers now. It might not be looking the best fan wise, but you can figure that out. And I had just like a big time panic attack. And it was just like, I don't think I want to do this, which was really rotten on me because I told everyone like a couple days before I was in a very good mood after a show. We played a really good show. So I might have had a couple too many parlors.
Yes, of course.
And I was like, I think we can do this. I think we got this. And they got really into it. And then like a couple days later, that's when I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I think like the rest of the tour, just no one spoke. It was just like a terrible vibe. And I'm like riding back up to Florida in our little cubbies. Like we're going first on the tour. Like, this is so great. Look how like fun this is. And then like the rest of the tour, I'm like, oh man, I really kind of messed that up, didn't I? So we just all didn't talk for a while. And I released my first solo album because those were all the songs that were supposed to be the second Captain album.
Oh, okay.
And I had all electric versions of them and I had all full band versions of them, but I was writing a lot. I was like definitely in one of those creative modes. So like right after the Futures canceled writing, I started writing all of those. And I'm like, here's how I think they can go. Here's how I think we can make them into a band. Then I quit the band. So I'm like, all right, now I got to rework these by myself. And it was just one of those things where we just didn't all talk to each other for a little bit.
Okay.
But when we did, it wasn't like any big sort of thing. It was kind of just more of like a text message being like, hey, want to play this show? And everyone being like, yeah, we'll play it. And that was just kind of it. Like, no, there's no big like falling out or anything. I was like, yeah, man, that sounds cool. All right, I'll do it. And that's just kind of how we operated moving forward. Okay. You know, like, hey, do you want to do this thing? Yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then it got to a point of like, I think we should write another album. But like, I was so checked out then too at that point that into the King of No Man writing session, I'm like, I don't even know what to do anymore. So it definitely sort of like fizzled and then started to get into like a pretty strange space of like, are we doing it? Are we not doing it? What are we doing here? Yeah. So that was kind of like, I guess, the top of the hill. And then things just sort of kind of started going down from there.
Okay. Well, and that album, I think, still came out really well. And it seemed like it was well received when it did come out. I mean, you know, I remember listening to it and like right off the bat, like it just boom, right at the beginning, and it doesn't stop. Like I think it's a great album. But
I think recording wise and like as far as like a studio, because this is our first time really in like a studio because we did the Futures canceled in 4 days. Yeah. So it was our first time being in a studio where we can actually like play around with things and spend some time in there. And we had a lot of fun doing it. I think for me personally, like maybe 3 or 4 of the songs were from the solo album I did that like, oh, these are the electric versions I had for these songs. And then I was kind of just like patchworking other songs together. But Leo went in there and Leo just, I mean, the Leo songs of that album are some of my favorite songs that he's ever written for sure. So he kind of did all the legwork for that album. And it was just sort of this period of time, though, I think we all kind of collectively thought to ourselves in that moment of like, man, do we really have it to build it up again? So instead of like a band going up that mountain and going and continue moving forward, we've just been like this. And so during that writing session, and we were down here and like we started to trick back up and like, do we really have it in us to do another one of these, like pulling ourselves up this mountain? And I think Leo and I looked at each other like, nah, I don't think so. But like, if I listened back to that one more so than I listened back to the Futures canceled or any of the other stuff that we did, because it seems like such a blur writing and recording that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like, Trying Year, I think is a big one. Like, I think that's one of your guys' best songs.
Yeah. Sure. I think that was the last one we did for that album too.
Oh, okay.
And was very close to being on the cutting room floor. It was just like, well, we'll do this one because I needed one more because I just didn't really write anything. And I was like, well, there's this one, and we worked out like, wow, we really like this song, but does it really fit with the other one? So I think even now, if I was resequencing that album, I'd probably cut it.
Okay.
And put it maybe somewhere else or
else.
something. But like I listen to that album, I'm usually like, that doesn't. I don't know.
So I mean, looking back on those and like your EPs and stuff, you know, what do you find is your best work, or you feel like maybe you're most proud of?
Honestly, the Animals Are Out days is songwriting wise, I think some of the most unique songs we could have ever possibly written. It was just because of that time period.
Mhm.
I think the Future is Canceled songs definitely it was us finding our own like inner selves, because like the Animals Are Out, it was just us together, and it was us jumping on each other, gang vocals, and everything's fun, and
Yeah.
you know, we're kids, and that album fits that theme of us being kids. And then you get to the Future is Canceled, and Leo and I really, that's when we were just writing alone by ourselves. And I think looking back at that album now, like, yeah, that fits that period of time as well. So I think somewhere in there is where we kind of like, if we found the little spark, it was there. Like, I think we found out how to truly craft songs with the Future is Canceled, but there's something so bizarre and unique about the Animals Are Out songs that if like I was to listen back to it now, like if I listen to the Animals Are Out, I'm just smiling the whole time because I'm like, this is just so silly and fun. And like, that's what I want to listen to music wise. But I think the Future is Canceled is probably like when we found our own like inner, you know, songwriter.
So, you know, what made, you know, you guys played the holiday show, and you did a couple in a row.
Yeah.
There was a few in a row. And then 2017, I think, was the last one.
Mhm.
And then you guys, a couple months later, kind of announced that, you know, we're not really a band anymore. What made you guys, you know, officially declare it, so to speak?
I remember driving with Leo, and he kind of looked at me and just did the old question of like, where is this going? The conversation of, do we have it in us to do another one? And I think he was at the point of like, I got no interest in doing this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was sort of anytime we got a show offer, a lot of like, do we really want to do it? Is it really worth it? Like, we're going to play the show in Washington, DC as like a one-off show. Do we really want to go? Do we really want to do this? So it was kind of like the whole fun adventure side of it was starting to be over. And it was more of the like, well, I kind of just want to sit home on a weekend. I'm not trying to spend a weekend driving to DC. And so Leo and I had a conversation, and he was like, you know, if you guys still want to do it, obviously do it. But I think I'm kind of checked out. And at that point, I was certainly checked out too. So we played a show in Brooklyn right after that. And we just sat at a restaurant and we're like, call it. And everyone's like, and Leo and Bill like, yeah, call it. And so we didn't have any announcement or anything. We just went to that show in Brooklyn. I think there's like 30 people there. And we're like, yeah, this is going to be our last show. And we played it. And then that was it.
Wow.
It was like, all right, that's kind of how that would go with our band.
Looking back on
yeah,
it,
like,
seems
yeah, that
seems like it fits
that
pretty well.
thematically fits.
So I talked to James Barrett a couple weeks ago
Uh-huh.
About the festival, because I was like, oh, he was telling me about it like months before they announced it. And, you know, he kept, you know, hyping me up about it. I'm like, all right, we got to do something. So, you know, we're going to announce this. So he's organized Good Things Are Happening Fest, and that's will be coming to the Scranton Iron Furnaces in just a few weeks. And he said he was kind of bugging you for years to get back together. Like, you know, how did that go? And, you know, what made you finally say, yeah, all right, let's do it?
Maybe not, but I wouldn't say bugging. Very nice guy.
That's the way he put it.
It definitely wasn't bugging.
Okay.
Just very kindly, you know, because he always would be really nice and be like, hey, you want to play a show? And it was always like solo stuff. And then if there is a show going on, like, is there an idea of Captain coming back in? You know, a couple of years ago, it's definitely a no, but you know, always, you know, thanks for asking. So we did have it. We did start a conversation where we were going to play a show in Scranton in like, I think it was April, maybe March. Then COVID was kind of really kicking back up again, and like, well, probably best to push this off and maybe we can work something out. So it had it sort of in the mind of like, well, we had a date, didn't work out, but maybe this thing. So when it came down to this one, I personally really wanted to do it with the band, just because it'd be outside, you know, like our families could come, like I can bring the girls down. I know Leo's got his family. I think he's got some family flying in.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, well, this will be just like a fun August day. You know, we're outside. We're at the Iron Furnaces at Southside. It's kind of, this is where we used to all hang out, you know, so this would be kind of a fun way to do it. And everyone was on board because, I mean, everyone was on board with doing a show again, regardless. So I think just trying to fit in with everyone's schedule when it would be, but just happy that it worked out now.
So, as you're a teacher, outside of the whole band thing, how do you like teaching? You know, what's up with still history?
Yeah, history.
Okay.
I love teaching. Teaching reminds me a lot of playing in a band. I taught in Philly for I think 5 years or 6 years, and a lot of times, especially with our band, you plan, you practice, you get all these things ready, and then something happens and you got to go, all right, well, now it's on to plan B or plan C or plan D. And a lot of what I found with teaching is that you can lesson plan, or you can get all these things prepped up. And then especially teaching in Philly, you know, you get a text on your phone that so-and-so is here and so-and-so doesn't like student X, all hands on deck. And it's like 8 a.m. and you're like, this lesson plan doesn't mean anything now, because now it's like we're all, you know, all hands on deck. So being in a punk band kind of prepped you for that. I was like, I was going to look at that thing anyway. Like, all right, let's kind of just go off people's emotions and personalities. So it reminds me a lot. It reminds you a lot of being in a band, and because you're on stage, you know, and you're in front of a bunch of people, and you have to do this thing, and it's you still have that human element and the personality element. You get to know these kids, and I love teaching. I recommend to anyone out there, become a teacher. It's the best.
Well, I mean, you hear all the time about how different each generation is, and I feel like a lot of that is just people forgetting what they were like as kids themselves, or, you know, what they were at that age. So do you see a lot of that kind of same youthful energy that you've been talking about with your band? Do you see that in a lot of the kids today?
I'm definitely trying to scope out, like, are there any, where are the punks? where are the kids playing guitar? I don't think I found any yet. But like my art teacher in 7th grade, she was the first one that she would give my brother and I like Dead Kennedy CDs, and Sex Pistols CDs, and the Clash, and the Specials, and being like, here, take these home and listen, because we're like, oh, we like Blink-182 and MXPX. She's like, yeah, those are cool, but like, check out the Dead Kennedys. And we're like, oh, this is awesome. So you always kind of have those teachers in your life, those ones that just sort of got it, and can connect you in that way. So not saying that I have that with any student where like they look at me and feel like I'm a teacher that really gets them. I don't know. But the idea that, at least for me, when I was in high school, if I knew I had like a teacher that was also into, you know, bands or punk or something like that, but like, wow, that's a game changer. So no one's come up to me and talked to me about bands yet.
But
I'll subtly kind of throw them in every now and then if we're talking about like anarchy in class, and I start singing a little bit of Baby I'm an Anarchist, and 30 kids are looking at me. I'm like, no one's got Reinventing Axl Rose at home. Anyway, moving on.
What are some of the things that you like to impart on kids when you're teaching? You know, what's something that you want to leave them with, or, you know, to make them feel when they're leaving the classroom?
I think the big thing is explore all roads that are in front of you. Don't think that your life is just a linear path and you go through high school and then you get out of high school and you just stay on that road and that's it. It certainly works for some. But it doesn't work that way for others. Like I tell this story the first day of class to all of my classes since my first year teaching. I barely got out of high school. Like I had to get a 80 or something on an economics test, and I passed for the year. And if I didn't, I fail for the year.
Jeez.
I was terrible. I definitely didn't get an 80, but that teacher, thank you. Thanks for helping me out there. I definitely didn't get an 80. But like, if you would have told me when I was a senior that I'd be back in a high school now teaching, like I would have thought that was the most ridiculous thing you could have said to me, especially if like the band option was on the table.
Right.
You know, like that's all I would sit as a kid in high school and literally just not focus on a lesson and drum on the desk writing The Animals Are Out songs, you know. And now that I'm back in a classroom, so I try to talk to students, just say, listen, they seem like a long time in your life. These 4 years, you know, you grow so much in these 4 years. You're a senior and you look back to yourself as a freshman and you're a baby. But just don't think you have to have it all figured out once you leave this place on like a straight path. You know, your path might zigzag, it might go this way, that way. My dad would always tell me, because I was just always kind of the flow. No one never knew what I was going to do. I was like the family science project. Just make sure you're on a path. I don't know what that path is. Just be moving forward, find something you're passionate about, stay on a path, try things that might scare you, but just don't feel the pressure of having it all figured out right now on this one straight path. You know, take different roads if you need to. Just make sure you're moving forward. So I try to talk to them about that. And, you know, I bring up a lot of this year, especially since my first like real full year teaching at NEPA. I try to bring in some old tour stories, or not, like I don't really like to tell them in a band. They found that out themselves.
Oh, well, of course.
Which I'm shocked about. Like the Philly kids could not care less. Like there is not one Google search with my name with those Philly kids. Like they're like, we do not care about you. You teach us. You're cool. See you later. It's like my second day of teaching around here, and they're like, you play in a band? I'm like, that is insane that you found that out so quickly. So it's this weird sort of awkward in between where I know that they know,
yeah,
but I make a big deal if anyone brings it up. So no one brings it up, but it's sort of this in between. But so every now and then I'll just sort of sprinkle in some like traveling stories or something like that, just to, you know, let them know that there's a big wide world out there and there's a lot of cool things to see and a lot of good things to do. So if it's, you know, staying around this area is great. Stay around there. If it's traveling and seeing what else is out there, you know, don't be afraid to take risks and stay on a path, move forward and better yourself. And if you need to go see the world. They do think my family's the most like interesting family of all time though. Cause I got a brother who tours the world.
Right.
So I tell his stories a lot. I have a cousin who plays in the NFL. I have another cousin who plays for Ohio State. My dad has all these old sailing stories of like dealings in South America and Central America. So every now and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's like the time where my dad was flying on this plane. They're trying to shoot him down. The kids are like, wait, what? So I tell them all these things and they're like, you're teaching here? I'm like, yeah, but I'm the coolest one. So I think it's always fun as a teacher kind of sprinkling in these little like stories and stuff like that, and hopefully build on personalities and friendships and whatnot. But it's very fun.
Do your kids think you're cool?
My little kids?
Yes.
Sometimes if I'm not saying no to them. I have a 3-year-old who we butt heads because she's 3.
Well, yeah, of course.
And she's mad at me all the time for not giving her cheese or something. And then I have a 10-month-old. Well, she'll be 11 months next week. And she's, we're like little buddies.
Okay.
So I think right now I'm still in that cool state. I'm like still like the, you know, run and jump when I come home, which I'm sure will change at some point.
So you get to be like punk rock dad, I guess.
Yeah. We, punk rock dad. I got right when the girls were born, they got their little Ramones onesies and Iron Maiden onesies. And you can totally tell a daddy-daughter time when, you know, my wife goes to work and their outfit for the day is the Iron Maiden onesie. And then it's mommy-daughter time and they're dressed very nicely. And I'm just like, the hair is like down on their face, like Ramones onesie. I try to listen to a lot of punk with them. They don't want to listen to that, but that'll be in time.
Sure, yeah, you got to give them a little bit first. You know, they got to do the Baby Shark thing and that kind of
Baby
stuff.
Shark,
first
and then Dead Kennedys.
Yeah, right, exactly. They hand in hand.
Little Baby Shark, Minor Threat, and then we move on from there.
All right, let's get to your comments, your questions, anything that you guys want to chat about. Now is that time. Let's see.
Please tell me there's at least one. I'd be so embarrassed. If
Oh
there's
yeah,
not
no,
one.
there's
not one.
plenty.
Rich is literally making them up right now.
Wouldn't be Captain We're Sinking if it started on time. Well, you know, that's our podcast too, so that's it just fits hand in hand, really. And here we go. Mr. Booze Radley. That's a good one. It was a solo release you did on Bandcamp called Kalufus. Kalufus.
That was my old World of Warcraft character.
Kalufus. Okay. But it got taken down before I downloaded it. Is there any way to get those songs now?
Yeah, if you go to my Bandcamp, Bob Barnett, I think there's 3 songs I put out under the name Kalufus. That's when I was trying to become a teacher. And I'm like, do I really want my name attached to this? And then I was like, well, yeah, no one's going to know what Kalufus is. My old World of Warcraft mage, maybe. I had a bear. I know. I don't know what sort of class I was or something, but I had a bear named Kevin in World of Warcraft. But if you go to the Bob Barnett Bandcamp, those 3 songs that I originally released are on there.
See, Jimmy says, will the Animals Are Out ever get a proper release? Is that has there been thoughts of re-recording or the album or select songs?
Yeah, if the Animals Are Out is ever re-released, it's going to be re-recorded. And we have already talked about that. That was actually going to be the next thing we did before the band broke up.
Oh, okay.
One of our last shows before we officially started talking about not doing it anymore. We're like, do we write another album just now while we're still kind of doing this, or should we do something else? So we started turning the wheels on re-recording The Animals Are Out. So I think if it ever is re-released, it will definitely be a re-recording because we just don't have those tracks anymore. And it's always kind of been on our bucket list of like, I don't think we could ever fully put this thing to bed until it's re-recorded.
Okay.
So it's definitely something I think we're all into.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Ronaldo wants you to do The Future is Canceled in its entirety. God will bless you.
That sounds fun. I gotta remember some of those songs, and there's definitely one song on there that I hate, but I'll learn it for Ronaldo.
Apparently there's a YouTube upload somewhere of Cosmos.
I thought my brother did a full internet scrub of Cosmos when he joined.
Apparently it's still out there somewhere.
Well, he might be very mad at me. When he joined the Menzingers, I think he tried to do a full-on internet scrub of his past. Just like, no one will know I played in Cosmos.
Is there any plans to play any more shows after this? Rem asks.
Didn't make any plans as of yet, so there's no shows booked. But I think now it's something where the door is like officially opened. Okay. So we can always just, we obviously have a very good time hanging out with each other again. So I think it's definitely something where if shows pop up or if there's offers or something like that, it's not like a hard no. There's nothing booked yet, but I think it's officially, open now. Like, all right, let's play some shows.
All right. That's some good news. Jimmy says, is the Scranton Invasion Tour off the table?
Scranton Invasion Tour of the Menzingers, Tiger's Jaw, and Captain We're Sinking was a great idea. And I think the Menzingers and Tiger's Jaw did it. I forget why we weren't asked. Or maybe we were asked, and then I forget what happened. I think they did because the original idea was like, all right, we'll do like 2 weeks in the US and then 2 weeks in Europe. And we'll do like a summer of all just the 3 bands. And I know Tiger's Jaw and the Menzingers did that. I just don't think I think at that point they're like, do we really need to include them on this? So we might have not been asked.
Let's see. Max Res Default says, Bobby sounds like a pretty cool teacher, honestly. I think you are.
I hope so. If any students are listening, which I hope you are not, I hope you think I'm somewhat cool.
Let's see. Patrick says, what was the writing process like for Smash 2?
I'm gonna answer this one truthfully. I hate that song so much. But I love Patrick so much. It was the King of No Man writing sessions. I realized Leo had all these awesome songs, and I was rehashing my old songs, and I was like, I gotta write a new one. So I wrote it, and I remember in the band practice showing, and we're playing the chorus, and Zach's like, that sounds like a Pennywise song. And I'm like, damn, I don't like this song. And for some reason, some weird like little ego trip I was on, it has to be included. And then it was included, and I was like, I hate this song. So that was the writing process of Smash 2. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Max Res Default also asks, I've always wondered why Montreal is called Montreal.
It was the time where we were making really silly song titles. And I think this one came from like a South Park episode and like an early season, like the dentist episode where they're like the mob stealing teeth. And the one dentist goes to a conference in Canada and he's like, I've seen this thing happen in Montreal. And everyone starts laughing at the dentist. And like the lead dentist go, and where pray is this Montreal? And we thought that was the funniest thing alive. So the original song title is Where Pray is this Where Pray is Montreal or something like that. And I think when we were like writing out the track list, I wrote that out. I was like, that is just the worst song title of all time. So I scratched out and put Montreal. But if we like play a show, we would go on tour and Bill would still write in the actual song title, Where Pray is this Montreal. Okay. He was like very strict. Like, that's what I know that song is.
So Booze asks, so was it those songs that were going to be on the post Futures Canceled album that never came to fruition?
The Little Wounds, the album I did called Little Wounds,
yes.
Those are all the songs that I had for the next for the post Futures Canceled album.
Okay.
And so they're all like slow and kind of moody and dreary. I had full on like big punk versions of them. And because I quit that tour and quit the band essentially, I reworked them into like these slower ones. So that's like re-recording The Animals Are Out is always on my like, wow, I really wish I can go back in time and like tell us to not spend our money on stupid things as, you know, like Clone Wars books and Black and Miles as a 12th grader, and like, you know, save it up and go to the studio. And another one is like, wow, I really wish I stuck that out. And those Little Wound songs, I kept them as their original forms and brought them to the band because the band did such cool things with the 3 that we did on the King of No Man album. Little Wounds, Hunting Trip, and King of No Man, like they really formed them. And so now there's, you know, all those songs out there that I'm like, wow, I really wish I was able to, I just actually brought them to them. But that was supposed to be it.
Okay. Monica says, hey, just want to say me and my husband are super freaking stoked that you guys are playing together again. What's on your playlist right now? Top favorite songs you're playing right now?
Wow. I don't want to be like the guy that only listens to old music because you should be supporting new music. So I do have to say I'm fully in the Turnstile boat right now. I know everyone's listening to Turnstile, and it's like, I don't know if it's cool anymore to say that you're listening to Turnstile, but like that album's just so good. So Turnstile is constantly on. I made a like 150 song punk playlist of my favorite punk bands from like 1996 to 2005, like that specific era. And I listen to it constantly all the time. So I listen to that quite a lot. The new Tiger's Jaw record I listen to a whole lot. I do listen to my brother's album a lot. He did such a fantastic job with that. So I listen to that a lot. My wife is a big country music fan, so we listen to a lot of country together. Okay. A lot of John Prine, Shovels and Rope, Jason Isbell, Justin Townes Earl, R.I.P. So we do listen to a lot of country. And that's kind of what's on at the house. And, you know, your classic Baby Shark and Super Simple songs and Disney Princess playlist mixed in there.
Of course. which I'm sure some of that is you too. You're probably like,
Yeah, you know
once
what?
in a while,
I tell you what, if you need a good bop, the Bubble Guppies soundtrack, like whoever is the lead songwriter for Bubble Guppies definitely is like an awesome musician that like just hasn't found their album yet, but like I just gotta do this Bubble Guppies gig, and it is so good. Like I'll be driving in my car and I'll be like singing like go to the restaurant, like it hits. So Bubble Guppies album is real good.
More people bringing up bad stuff. Jared asks, why do you hate You Have Flaws?
All right, You Have Flaws is the song on The Future Is Canceled that I hate. That was
You Have Flaws is the first song we wrote for The Future Is Canceled. So it sort of sounds like a song from like the EPs days. And I listen back to it now and I just think it is stupid. I just think I'm just like, not that I think the song is stupid. I think it should have been cut from the album. Cause like you listen to the album, like, oh yeah, this all sort of fits. And then there's just like this, like kind of like doofy little fart song in there. And then it kind of keeps going. And I'm like, that's a weird little speed bump. So maybe I don't hate You Have Flaws. I just kind of hate that it's on the album.
Okay. Rob asks, are there any Captain We're Sinking songs that have not been released? And if you would release them in the future if there was.
No, like studio B-sides. We did that all. The only B-sides we had were released on like the EPs compilation album I put up on streaming services over the winter. There are 2 songs from the It's a Trap days. For any of those listening out there, they're in the deep cut days. That was right after The Animals Are Out. We did It's a Trap as a 4-song EP. There's 2 songs that were written during that time that we never did. So my idea, I never told any of the rest of the band this, so maybe this is how I tell them, is if we re-record The Animals Are Out, just add those 2 songs to the new recording. So then, at least they're kind of like 2 newish but old songs to The Animals Are Out. And they're 2 of my favorite songs. I think we ran out of time or something. Like we had them all ready to go. We just kind of forgot about them, but I do love them.
Okay. So I guess that kind of leads into, Jared asks, is there a possible new music down the road at some point?
I talked to Leo about this actually like 2 nights ago. We were texting and I was like, well, after the show, what do you want to do? Is there a way that you kind of want to still do some things? So we definitely left the door open. He did tell me that he hasn't written anything new since The King of No Man. Like I've always kind of stayed trying to be creative as much as I can with music and stuff. And I think he kind of just was like, yeah, the band is over now. I can kind of go do other things. So I think if there is new music on the horizon, it would sort of be pulling him out of a very deep slumber.
Okay.
But he definitely didn't kill the idea. He's like, yeah, I'd be into that. I just haven't written anything in like 5 years. So I think it'd be more of a uphill thing than like, let's say, redoing The Animals Are Out right now just to kind of keep the train moving.
Okay. George asks, what was your favorite venue that Captain played and why was it Comet Ping Pong?
Comet Ping Pong. I don't think Comet Ping Pong exists anymore, which is also, if you're into like the conspiracy stuff, like that's where like 2016, there was some sort of like conspiracy theory that the Democrats were having a child trafficking dungeon underneath.
Another one?
Underneath Comet Ping Pong.
Many
like
of
we were
those.
driving to the show and being like, what were we playing? Comet Ping Pong. And everyone's like, wait, Comet Ping Pong. Like, I don't think it exists anymore because of that. Great place though, which was terrible. Like if it shut down, I'm really sad about that because it was awesome. They had great pizza and ping pong. And then punk bands. And it was just like, that's the greatest thing.
That is a great combination.
But other favorite venues we played, I don't know if there's like a favorite one, at least for like sound wise, or just like, my mind always goes to like the sketchiest ones. We were talking about our practices. Like we played a basement in Richmond, Virginia in like ankle deep water. And everyone was getting electrocuted like badly. God. My amp was the only one that was lifted in a grounded, I break this, in a grounded outlet like up here. So I was good, but everyone else, and we just had a microphone there, and like people will come up to sing and everyone's having a really good time, so you don't want to stop the set, so they jump on the microphone, then they get like zapped backwards.
Jesus.
Definitely should have kept playing there. We played a place called James Joyce Pub in North Carolina. It was outside and it started to rain and they wanted us to keep playing. So they put like little bar napkins over our amps. I don't know why my favorite shows are all ones with us getting potentially electrocuted, but we were talking about that one the other day too. Like we played a full set in the rain with like bar napkins over our amps. Yeah, definitely the sketchy ones are the ones that stick out to you the most.
Are there any plans for a 2022 Star Wars rap remix?
No. No, I did show my students it.
Oh, did you?
I think there was a Star Wars fan in there. I'm like, well, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm just like, please allow me. And everyone kind of just stopped what they were doing and looked at me. And there's a weird, awkward silence. And then I was like, all right, get back to your work. No one mentioned this ever again. Yeah, so come to my class of 8th graders and I'll do the Star Wars rap while you're doing some classwork.
Yeah, obviously this guy, Random Frank P, remembers that pretty well. He said, what about the Wookiee? What is it about the Wookiee that can tear off your arms and legs?
We used to have the T-Pain Auto-Tune app
okay.
on our phone. And like one time we were driving to a show and me and Zach did the whole Star Wars rap in Auto-Tune. And it was like seriously awesome. It was so good.
So this is it. I wanted to kind of start to wrap up with talking about your solo stuff, and so this I guess leads into that pretty well. Max Red's Default again says, "I love your solo stuff. Is there a story behind Showing Teeth?"
Yeah, that album was written right before The Future Is Canceled. Well, there's only 3 songs in there, but I wrote a whole album before The Future Is Canceled by myself, and I wrote. There was like I like to write little short stories and then build songs around those short stories and kind of go from point A to point B and connect the dots there. So that's where like the song Lake from The Future Is Canceled comes from, that little writing session that I had. And I recorded a summer. The Menzingers were writing On the Impossible Past in my mom's basement in the Poconos. My brother kicked my mom out of her own house and said, go live with our grandparents for like a month.
Yeah.
But the band's going to take over the house. And my mom was like, okay. My grandparents live down the street. So all the Menzingers moved up to the house that we grew up in Lake Ariel. And me and Mike, who is Tom's younger brother and who played drums for us originally, Captain and Sinking, were working on a golf course. So it was the Menzingers and then me and Mike living in this house for like a month. So we would wake up at like 5 a.m., go to work and get home at 2, and they would just be waking up at 2. And then they would start writing the On the Impossible Past songs. Then when they were done, we'd all go up and have like a barbecue on the back deck in Lake Ariel. And I would sneak down and use their instruments and recording gear. And I would record these songs that I had. So I did all these home recordings of these songs and I sent them over to Ben. He's like, yeah, these are really cool. And some of them I used for Captain and Sinking. Some just kind of fizzled out and died away. Someone messaged me and said, hey, I'm a student at this college and I have some studio time I got to do for a project. You want to come in for one day? And Ben played drums. We went to somewhere out in, I think, Central PA. I just we recorded 3 songs in one day. And like, I didn't have any songs. I'm like, hey, you remember those songs I sent you like years ago? He's like, yeah. Do you want to record next like weekend with me? Then he's like, yeah, I got it. And played drums and like nailed it. And that was that. It was pretty fun.
You had an album in 2018, Steady Ache, and that had more of a folk and country influences there. And you played the banjo on that, right? Did you have to learn to play the banjo to do that? Or?
I bought the banjo just because I wanted to own a banjo. And I'm like, all right, do I traditionally learn how to play this thing? No, that's going to take too long. So I started just writing songs on it. So the songs on the Steady Ache album are songs that right when I bought the banjo, I just wrote all those songs on banjo.
Okay.
And then my friend Ian Farmer from Slaughter Beach Dog has a studio in Philly. And he's like, hey, you want to record sometime? And I'm like, well, I have this banjo project. So it became him and I's like little baby, like working on this album. He plays bass on it. So yeah, I mean, I haven't touched the banjo since, but I just had these banjo songs. I'm like, I'm gonna record a banjo album.
Okay. Well, I noticed too your solo albums all kind of have a different feel to them.
Mhm.
It seems like you're doing new stuff. Even on I was just listening to the new one a couple hours ago, Darkness Only Darkness, and that just came out May 6th. And that has some kind of electronic sounds and stuff in there too. What made you want to go in that direction?
I wanted something to play while my daughter slept.
Oh, okay.
So we were living in a small row home in Philly, and I couldn't be loud. I couldn't play guitar, and I wanted to do another album, but didn't really know what to do. So I started doing some digging and found this company, Machine, has this little, drum synth bag called Mark III, and it comes with a computer program, and you can record all these songs. So the original idea was, I have these acoustic songs these songs I'm working on. I'll just use it from the drum pad, and then I'll record acoustic guitar over it, and that will be the album. Then I started playing around with it. Little side note, I have a Final Fantasy-esque opera called Forgotten Genesis that I have been writing now for 15 years.
Okay.
It's my.
This is going to be really epic.
It's my whale. It's something I will never finish. But whenever I just need something silly, I'm just like, I'll think about the Forgotten Genesis songs, and I kind of modeled it to be like an RPG game.
Okay.
And I wrote songs around Forgotten Genesis. So I'm downstairs playing with this thing. I'm like, I don't know how to work, and I'm like, let me record a Forgotten Genesis song from scratch just on this thing, and I do it, and I'm like, I don't know. I think that sounds kind of cool. Like, it's certainly real dumb, but I think I can figure something out with this. So I had a group of, I think it's 10 songs that floated from different eras of my writing that I just never did anything with. I'm like, let me just record them all on this thing and see what they sound like. The only basis I had off of it was the Postal Service. That was the only electronic really band I've listened to or can model it off of. So I listened to a lot of Postal Service and tried to sort of emulate that. And so every single song on that album is from a different era of writing. There's Animals Are Out songs on there from when I was a kid. There's newer songs on there I wrote for my daughter. There's some Futures Canceled songs that were on the cutting board that are on there. Every single era of me as a songwriter is in those 10 songs that I just had. And I'm like, I'm never going to do anything with. Might as well do it with these little drum loops and synths and stuff, and it was so much fun to make. I want to continue doing that because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it satisfying to kind of scratch different creative itches with the solo albums? It seems like you get to kind of experiment with all kinds of different sounds and instruments and things like that. So that creatively, that's got to be very satisfying.
It's a lot. I'm definitely not one for just doing one thing and being like, all right, well, I want to keep trying this. The fun part about the solo albums are just whatever kind of mood you're in, do. You bought a banjo, write some songs, record some songs on the banjo. Why not? And same thing with this thing. Oh, cool. Now I have this. Now I'll do this next. And it's not released by anyone. I just put it up online myself. And it's not like I'm looking to make money off of it or I'm looking to make a career off of it, because it's just something that creative side, I don't want it just to go to rot. I want to kind of keep doing some things and maybe someday show my daughters, and they won't be totally embarrassed. I'm sure that they will be. But just this is something I did in this era. So I can listen to the Little Wound songs or the Steady Egg songs and be like, oh yeah, I remember that specific era. Just like the Captor is Sinking stuff. And so hopefully I can keep creating these things and look back at that era in my life of oh yeah, I did that because my daughter was sleeping taking a nap. So I would sneak down to the basement and record these little synth songs.
Okay.
So hopefully can keep doing stuff like that.
Nice. Well, so they're on your Bandcamp now. So make sure you go and check those out. And how have you and the band been preparing for the festival? You said you just went to practice recently. Is there are you doing a lot of practices? Or are you just kind of going in and just
Nope. We had one practice so far. We ran through the set list once and we're like, yeah, that's good for the day. It was really hot. No one was trying to hang out in that basement for that much longer. So I think we're gonna practice leading up to the show and go from there. It kind of seems par for the course for how we operate. So just run through the songs once. Everyone got it? No? Good, great, wonderful. It'll figure itself out.
Now, I heard somebody mention is Ben playing with you guys on this one?
Yeah, Ben's gonna play bass with us.
Oh, okay, cool.
Ben's been, as I said before, a member of Captain singing longer than I have. Ben's played drums in the band. He has played bass in the band. I'm sure he has played guitar at some point when one of us going to play a show. So he is definitely an honorary member, if not a full member, as he has always been. But he's always been there to help us out with things.
And are there any plans for a solo stream like you did early on in the pandemic? Andy asks.
Yeah, but I think now that I just created a Captain Sinking Instagram page. Yeah. And so I'm like, that's cool. I can just like do that live now. And so it doesn't have to be like through like a website or Bandcamp does it, which was really cool. But I think if we can just kind of do these off the cuff, like, hey, just go on Instagram live. And if anyone wants to watch it, put in the comments what song you want to hear, whether that be a solo song or a Captain song, and we'll see if I can play it or not. That sounds very fun. So I would love to do that.
Richie asks, is there any commentary you can share regarding Dance of Joy?
Dance of Joy was one of the most enjoyable songs ever. Probably the most enjoyable song we ever had to record because Leo was talking the other day what kind of mood he was in when he was writing it, but it always sounds to me like a Lion King song, which is great because it's our only song with the rain stick in it. But we were recording it. It was one of the last songs we recorded for the album. And I think Leo and I looked at each other like, man, we should just like scrap everything and just write songs like this. Like, just not do this whole album and just go back to the writing room and like figure out a whole album that sounds like this. But then we're easily scrap that. But we had so much fun doing it. Bill was doing all these different percussion stuff with it. And they had everything in the studio. We're like, let's throw that on there. Let's throw that on there. It was so much fun. It's such a oddball song, but it's definitely one of my favorites for sure. And we just had such a fun time recording it. I love that song.
Rem, you said it missed some of the stream. Is there anything about future Captain shows? Yes, there is the option that out there that more Captain shows could happen.
Yeah, may potentially happen. Certainly not off the table now that the door's open.
Right, nothing planned yet.
Yeah, certainly talk about it.
All right, so anything else that you wanted to mention, or anything you want to say about the upcoming festival?
Great festival, August 6th in Scranton. A lot of great bands playing. It's really cool to have something in Scranton again, like we were talking about before. The local scene growing up and playing in Scranton.
Absolutely.
We just moved back. I'm so happy to be back in this area. It's such an awesome community of great people, and just it's such a wonderful place to be a kid and raise a family and everything. Like, I love Scranton, so I really hope that something like this can continue to happen. And James is doing a wonderful job of trying to build the community and build the scene and be an active member in it and trying to get people along with them. And I like what you guys do with NEPA Scene. I watch the V Spot open mic nights quite a lot.
Oh, cool.
It's sort of close to me. There's been a couple times I was talking to my brother. I'm like, I think I might go down.
Oh, you should. I
think one of these nights I have to go down.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
But I love it. Like, it's just great to see people being creative in this area, and not just trying to jump ship at the first shot they got and go to a place, and then to a city or Philly or New York or something like that. But like, let's build something here. So I hope that something like this can kind of keep building towards that.
So the first ever Good Things Are Happening Fest will be held outdoors at the Scranton Iron Furnaces on Saturday, August 6th from noon to 10:30 with Captain We're Sinking, Modern Ties, James Barrett, Pay for Pain, the Tisberries, Slingshot Dakota, Valley Heart, Worries, Bren, Campanula, and Glass Mask. I should, again, get another medal for getting through all of that without messing any of those up. I hope, anyway. I probably mispronounced at least one of them, but tickets are on sale now. I greatly encourage you to get them in advance because James Barrett is currently having a heart attack, as he's probably having it right now as we speak, because he's very worried that people aren't going to show up for this thing. I think with that kind of lineup, people are destined to show up. But as we know, people always wait till the last minute. They don't buy tickets in advance. They just decide that day that they're going.
It's a walk uptown.
Yeah. Oh, I got to go all the way up that hill. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I hear some noise going on down there.
Yeah, all right. Okay, I'll go check it out. I mean, it's not up the Einen or anything.
Yeah,
so,
it's right there.
It's right there. But yeah, we appreciate you hanging out with us, and thank you so much for coming on and catching up with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Been a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that you're still out there doing it.
Yep.
Still making music, and happy for you because I think the last time we talked, you weren't married yet, you didn't have kids yet, the whole 9 yards. So all of these great things happened since then.
A lot has changed.
Yeah, a lot has changed. But so congrats on the new album.
Thank you.
And I'm very excited to see you guys play again at the festival. So please support this festival because it is independently put together. James put a lot of work into this with a couple of friends of his as well. I think Steve from Stage West is involved as well. He organized a lot of shows around there and at the Scranton Iron Furnaces before, and the venue is just so cool. It's just something you have to see. It's pretty great. There's going to be a ton of vendors there as well. They just announced those, so go follow the Good Things Are Happening Fest on all your social media platforms, your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. And you guys have some new accounts too, right?
Yeah, our accounts got hacked a little bit ago. Like, well, there goes the band, I guess. So we just made them all again. So we got a Instagram, Twitter. The Facebook was the only one that didn't get hacked, but we got a new Twitter, got a new Instagram. So I'll try to be active on those. I'm not the best with social media, but I'll try my best and try to maybe do some stuff on like Instagram Live or things like that.
Cool. All right. Well, looking forward to it. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. Thank you, Justin, for jumping in and making this show possible at the last minute. Appreciate that. And we will see you here next Wednesday for another live stream. If you liked this, you enjoyed it, I saw a lot of great comments. Make sure that you're liking, sharing, reacting, all that good stuff, so that the social media gods bless us with more views, because that is always seems to be what we're chasing a lot lately, is trying to break through the algorithm of bad news and crap going on. And what better way to do that than with good news, Good Things Are Happening Fest. So thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you here next Wednesday. Have a good night.